Thanks everybody for being patient. The others will be here shortly.
No, not up yet on YouTube.
Okay. Thank you. Up next is the brucellosis update. Steve True, Director of Wyoming Livestock Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, I'd like to give you just a real quick agency update and then kick it over to Dr. Hazel for your brucellosis update. Couple of things that came out of the last session. I just wanted to update the committee with where we are with those. You brought a hide inspection bill that passed through both houses. And it became active upon signature. And so all of our brand inspectors and all slaughter facilities have been updated, trained on that new procedure and what that requires. So thank you for that. You also, as a committee, offered a exception request to change the appropriation for our law enforcement reimbursement account. Quickly on that we did meet with the Sheriff's Association in late April, discussed that with them, and I walked out of the meeting with 4 new counties that wanted in. Thank you. We've amended contracts on all the existing 8 counties, and they're now for the full biennium, next biennium. And we had a really healthy discussion about a next step. We're working on that, and by the next meeting, I'll be able to report to you where we are with that. But the overview is an information highway to allow deputies in each county, the livestock deputy in each county, to communicate with all their brethren. We'll train them all together, get them all together quarterly for a while, and the sheriffs are pretty excited about expanding that program. So thank you, committee, for bringing that forward. Quickly, you may recall from the budget discussions that we got we're awarded money for a new website. We're contracting in the final stages of contracting with those folks that will build that. So that'll be rolling right on July 1, and the same with the supplier of the new animal health operating system. And that one was to allow us a better ability to assimilate, sort, report, and hoard data. So that was something that we've been looking forward for a few years, and that's carrying right along. I think that's it. Dr. Hazel may touch on it. You did pass an appropriation where we increased our brucellosis compensation for testing for veterinarian slaughter plants and livestock markets. That we had to amend our Chapter 6 compensation rules. Those are out for comment and will come in on the 24th. The 25th, we have a board meeting. So hopefully those will be completed and sent to the governor's office for final signature at that time. So, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any questions on that update or any other agency-wide questions, I'd kick it over to Dr. Hazel.
Thank you, Director True. Committee, any questions? Yes, Representative Conrad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. True, what is the website, if you know, what URL or the website, the new one is coming up July 1st? Do you know the name of it?
It's going to be the same. It'll be the same as we are under the state right now. We're just replacing.
Okay.
We're building a new one and replacing the old one. That will be.
Thank you.
Further questions for Director True, committee? Up next, we'll go to Dr. Hazel.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair. My update today should be fairly brief. First, I'd like to mention what Director True also talked about was our brucellosis reimbursement. As you are well aware, the legislature was able to allow producers to request up to $50,000 per quarantine versus the $25,000 previously allowed. And we have had one producer who did apply for the full $50,000 and has since received that. We have we have 2 more requests forthcoming. One will probably be close to $50,000 as well. And we will actually have a total of probably at least 4 producers for FY24 requesting funding, and it could include some more this fall. So thank you very much for that. Those producers are extremely thankful for that, with the cost of feed, the cost of hay, trucking, etc. Extremely appreciative. So thank you very much for that work. We do have one herd still under quarantine in Park County that is a large herd. Hopefully he'll be off quarantine within the next month or so. We're really hoping on that one. Another quick update. We did have one horse that was equine infectious anemia, or commonly known as Coggins, positive this past April, May. The horse was illegally imported from Texas. Texas is known to have Texas, California, some of the southern states are known to have more EIA or Coggins positive horses than the rest of the US. A lot of that comes from illegal blood doping and use of contaminated needles and syringes in our quarter horse race industry, along with what's called bush track racing, which is illegal racing of quarter horses in the United States. So we found that one horse was illegally imported. It was a roping horse. Sorry, Director True, was a roping horse. And thankfully, our veterinarians and our brand inspectors helped identify that horse that did not have change of ownership or Coggins papers when it was purchased by some people in Wyoming. So that horse is now euthanized. And as a result of that exposure from that horse, we have tested approximately 15 other horses in Wyoming, but we also have to test horses horses are also being tested in Texas, Utah, Wyoming, and possibly some other states as a result of that one horse that was positive. Another quick update is that we do, as it was mentioned on Friday during a press release, we do have one dairy that has been affected by highly pathogenic avian influenza. We are working with Wyoming Department of Ag and Wyoming Department of Public Health on that dairy to help that dairy work through all of the different programs available through USDA for their employees and the producers themselves through the recognition of highly pathogenic avian influenza in livestock. And that's my update. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any questions or anything for Dr. Hazel from Chairman Craigo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering if either of you two could give us a quick update on what's happening at the vet lab.
Mr.
Director.
Chairman, I would be happy to defer that to Dr. Hazel after a brief comment. Both Dr. Hazel and I serve on the advisory council at the vet lab. There was a meeting this spring. They have made some hires in some of the laboratory positions. I'm not sure if Dean Crane commented on that to you yesterday at all while he was here. I would say that some of those are more academically inclined rather than clinical diagnosis inclined, which is our blended mission with the lab. So that would be my one comment I would make, and then turn it over to Dr. Hazel because she's visited with most of these folks. They have hired a new director, and we're looking forward to meeting her this summer before she starts and working with that new lab director.
Thank you, Director Drew. Dr. Hazel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so as Director True mentioned, they have several new hires. Some are not starting. Actually, most of them are not starting until after August, which is related back to the academic year. The one highlight of it that we're really looking forward to is working with the new director. I'd like to visit with that new director regarding some of the position descriptions of those that were hired and what their responsibilities are and when they are actually available for our veterinarians. So there is progress being made. They are, I think, attempting to fill some of the requests that we have made, but I would ask that you probably visit further with the lab to understand the true position descriptions for some of those hires and the concerns that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hazel. Do you have a follow-up, Chairman Craigo?
Not necessarily a question, Mr. Chairman. Maybe we could just put that on the agenda for our next meeting and just revisit that this fall after you two have had a chance to maybe meet some of the new staff and see if there's anything we need to talk about or do regarding that later this fall after everybody's started.
Mr. Chairman, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Other committee, is there further questions for, yes, Representative Slago?
Yeah, Dr. Hazel, question I would have is, what are some of the implications of the avian flu in cattle?
Dr. Hazel?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. With regards to HPAI in cattle, This may not exactly answer your question, but I'll give you a whole kind of a summary about it. So what we're seeing for in dairy cattle, specifically highly pathogenic avian influenza in dairy cattle, is when these cattle become affected, they typically will peak with that about after exposure about 7 to 10 days later. And they will have kind of a thickened colostrum-like milk. They go off feed. They go down in production significantly. They have very high fevers. They're lethargic. And the primary care revolves keeping these animals hydrated during that high fever period. What it looks like at this point in time through the epidemiological information that USDA has collected is that all of the dairy events stem from one transfer of avian influenza from birds to cattle in a Texas dairy. And from there, it appears that most of these may be related to that one spillover into cattle. Not all dairies have shown true links to this particular dairy, but the epidemiological studies are still being undertaken. It's being watched closely as far as the human impact as well with regards to employees. But we do know that these cattle, as a rule, once they hit that 7 to 10 day peak of fever, lethargy, and decreased production, they do start to come back if they've been treated and kept hydrated. A percentage of them are sent as cull animals, but it looks like a greater percentage of them are able to return to milk, although not at the level they were previously at. The avian influenza typically targets the mammary gland, and it targets cattle that are towards the end of their lactation period. With regards to beef cattle, there haven't been any studies done per se in beef cattle, but it's also something that would be much more difficult to notice in beef cattle because it does typically replicate and really has an affinity for the mammary gland. So we haven't done the studies, but also it won't be nearly as noticeable except for those producers who are very astute producers with regards to lactation in their beef cows. Does that kind of answer your question? Are there more questions, more details you'd like to hear?
Thank you, Dr. Hazel. A follow-up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. That kind of answered my questions. I just was curious how it had transferred over into the beef or into the cattle industry and what we were seeing. So thank you.
Committee, further question? Yeah, Representative Conrad.
Mr. Chairman, thank you to the good doctor. Wasn't there recently a detection of avian influenza in dairy in Wyoming? Where was that at, I guess?
Mr.
Dr.
Chair,
Hazel.
and thank you for the question. So we do not release the actual location of the dairy. All that we release is that it was a Wyoming-based dairy. And yes, we were confirmed to have a positive, highly pathogenic avian influenza dairy. The confirmation was released, I believe, on last Thursday afternoon. And we're working with Department of Ag and
Follow-up,
Wyoming
or-
Public Health.
Thank you, Doctor. Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, do we have any history, Wyoming in particular, on avian influenza that's happened in the past? And is this something relatively new, or what does it look like going backwards? Thank you.
Dr. Hazel.
Mr. Chair, Senator Ide. So Wyoming has had avian influenza in both domestic and wild waterfowl on several different occasions. The USDA avian influenza website has an updated map of all the states that have been impacted by avian influenza. And if you click on that state, it will also tell you where the cases have been in that state. Also, our Wyoming Game and Fish Department maintains an updated thermal map of all the positive avian influenza cases that they have had in the state. And that includes mountain lions. We've also had domestic cat, many different types of wild birds. And I know I'm forgetting some other species, but all of those are on the Wyoming Game and Fish if they're wildlife, and they are on the USDA map for Wyoming as well. And we've been dealing with avian influenza for at least 3 years now in our poultry flocks and also in our wild waterfowl and wild populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hazel. Follow-up? Follow-up, Senator Ide. Committee, any other questions? Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to extend to the director if there's anything that comes up in between meetings or something that the department needs. We've left room for that in our interim topic list. So if something comes up, please let us know and we'd be glad to put it on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. Committee, any other questions of Dr. Hazel or Director Chu? If not, we'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment out there? Is anybody online? Nobody's online. Nobody's rushing the stage. So, all right, we'll go to other committee actions. Is there other things? Senator Kolb?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, I'd like to make a motion for a bill draft. The bill draft would be a reintroduction of Senate File 13 grossed as it passed the Senate. And if to remind, I guess the committee, this came out of this committee last year. And this was specifically originally crafted around the thought that around the Rock Springs RMP and the need to fight that action. And it was contemplated that the legislative body, through the statements given in this bill, had the authority to represent the state of Wyoming when it comes to the federal government and oppose, generally be opposing the federal government's actions. And I think it's even more pertinent today because, as predicted, the federal government is using the same methodology for the ongoing RMP process. And this, to remind the committee, the way it came out of the Senate was a $50 million appropriation. And I could read these parts if somebody would like to for the bill title, if that's necessary. I think most of the folks here on the committee have been here last year when we discussed it. So I would make that motion that we would start a bill draft process based around Senate File 113, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second to that motion? Pardon? Who did? Seconded by Ide. Motion by Senator Kolb, second by Senator Ide. Is there discussion? Senator Steinmetz.
Was it Senate File 13 or 113?
Oh, I'm sorry, Senate File 13.
And could you please read the title for the public listening online?
Yes, Madam Chair. Titled, an act relating to the legislature, authorizing the legislature to prosecute actions involving the proper administration and interpretation of federal acts, making conforming amendments, providing legislative findings, authorizing loans as specified, specifying repayment of loans, and providing for an effective date. Oh,
What's the short title of the bill?
federal land use plans, legal actions authorized.
Thank you, Senator Kolb. Further discussion? Representative Alderman.
Yes, sir. Coming out of the House, there was an amendment put on that bill raising up from 50 to 75,000. I'd like to put that amendment back in.
It was
75 million, I'm sorry, from 50 million to 75 million, and I'd like to put that amendment back in.
further discussion.
Yeah, Senator Kolb.
To that, the House amendment also broadened it up and allowed the county commission to tap that said fund. That was the other part and parcel. I don't disagree with it going from 50 to 75 million. But this is just the beginning of a bill draft, and we can work the bill, and go further down that road. I'll leave it up, Mr. Chairman. I'll take it. That was the reason. That's what happened in the House. It went from 50 to 75 million and broadened the ability for the Board of County Commissioners, in this case, to use the money for said litigation purposes.
Thank you, Senator Kolb. Mr. Chairman, Craigo.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Anna had something. She had her hand up over there. I don't know what she's gonna tell us, but I'm sure it's gonna be good.
I apologize.
Mr. Chairman and members, do you want me to work off of the engrossed copy or the way that the bill came out of committee? What would you prefer? The
Senator
engrossed
Kolb.
copy has all of those amendments in it already. So it's up to you.
I made
Senator
the,
Gold.
Mr. Chairman, I made the motion for the engrossed copy to be used as the structure of the bill draft.
Representative Almond, are you good with that? Where it's got those?
Yes, I am. I will remove that amendment and we'll put it in later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Further discussion by committee? Seeing none. There's a motion by Senator Kolb to move, have the Senate File 13 advanced, second by Senator Ide. What's the pleasure of the board? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? Okay. Thank you for that. Are there other committee actions that anybody on the committee wants to discuss? Representative Element.
Earlier today, I was told not to put in an amendment on the CO2 pipeline eminent domain because there was no public discussion or it was not advertised. Since that time, 3 other bills or 2 have come in already and another one is coming in here in a minute. I would like to amend that and put that into our discussion with LSO drafting that bill, mirroring our eminent domain bill. And I'd like to have it in for the Buffalo meeting. And I'll make that motion.
Representative, was that Senate File 10 that you're just in amending Senate File 10?
Yes. Yes, it's Senate File 10 that I want to kind of mirror.
Wants a new draft.
Pardon?
It would be a separate draft. It would be a new bill.
And, I'm told it would be a new bill. Are you good with that?
Yes, sir. That's what I want is a new bill.
Okay, is there a second to that? Seconded by Representative Schlegel. Discussion? Senator Hicks, sorry, Chairman.
So I don't know that I understand the motion. Is there a separate bill that just deals with CO2 or are we amending in CO2? And I would counsel against amending CO2 into the other one because you run the risk. And I think this is what Karen Bud Failing was saying. The more you decorate ornaments, the less likely you're going to be able to deal with collector lines. So
this is a separate draft.
if we do it, I just want to make sure that was the motion to do a separate bill, similar, specific to CO2 pipeline.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's what I needed clarification for. Thank
Thank you, Senator Hicks. Further discussion on this. Chairman Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when we talked about this earlier, this is a completely new topic. The CO2 pipelines is not a topic we've even talked about. We also have a different chairman running the meeting. They have a different prerogative. They get to decide what comes in, what doesn't. It's just a recommendation. It's up to the committee. It's not a big deal one way or the other. I just want to make sure that whatever we're doing is very transparent, open to the public, and that because there is going to be a different set of people to show up and talk about eminent domain on CO2 collector lines than there are lines, collector lines for electricity. That's all I'm getting at is we're only as good as our process, and we need to make sure that people have the opportunity to come. Now, starting a bill draft doesn't mean anything other than we're starting a bill draft. It's not a big deal, but we just have to be careful in the process. I think that we're making sure everybody knows what's going on and that they're not surprised that wasn't on the agenda this time around. And here all of a sudden, now we're going to have a bill draft. The difference between that and some of these other things we've done, we spent a whole interim last time doing this exact bill. So it won't surprise anybody. So I would clarify what's going on and the difference between that and what we're been doing or about to do.
Thank you, Chairman Craigo. Further discussion on this? Senator Hicks.
Yeah, so, and I think that, there's a couple members here that are on the Minerals Committee, and so it was my understanding that the Minerals Committee is already looking at the CO2 pipeline in context of eminent domain or not. Was it something different than eminent domain and CO2 that they were looking at? You don't want 2 committees working on the same exact bill drafts. And so that's what I'm trying to understand. What's the Minerals Committee doing?
Thank you, Senator Hicks. Those on the Mineral Committee, you had your hand up first, Representative Allemand.
I look at this as not so much a CO2 pipeline. I look at this as eminent domain. And we spent an hour and a half on eminent domain this morning. And that's where I'm looking at it. In South Dakota right now, they are having one big fight over the eminent domain with the CO2 pipelines, and the people are losing. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Conrad, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Out of respect for the question from Senator Hicks, I would encourage the committee to allow us to manage through the Minerals Committee and the CO2 work that we're doing with pipelines, et cetera. And if that does not include that, I will return a report sooner than later where we're at. And if it does not include that, we'll move forward to Representative Allemand's efforts.
Thank you, Representative.
So if I may, just a suggestion.
Senator Kolb, or Senator Hicks, sorry, you're
So
next.
just a suggestion, I think that, if the Minerals Committee is working on this, probably one of the more appropriate mechanisms that we could consider would be to recommend to the Minerals Committee that they look up this issue of, because they really are the parent committee for, even though this is eminent domain's a private land issue, which currently could be argued that we have jurisdiction. Again, the more focused that we can be as individual committees, if they're already doing that, so what I would suggest is, and this is a suggestion, that this committee would recommend to the Minerals Committee to take up this issue of eminent domain associated with CO2. If they choose not to do so, we incorporate that into the agenda back at our September meeting. We can still bring up separate legislation at that time if they choose not to take that up.
Thank you, Senator Hicks. There's a lot of hands up. I think Senator Kolb was next, then Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All due respect, I think the process that we have to always, I always try to remember is that I don't agree with Management Council, number one. I'll just tell you that right now. However, I think
I never agree with
what Management Council does is they micromanage us, and in the next breath, we're trying to then justify them saying, "What are you folks doing?" Because we're just going to be studying similar topics in different committees. So and if we're referring to Senate File 13, that was, as previously mentioned, vetted last year totally. Public had a chance to comment about it. We went through the whole process. We even had meetings, committee meetings in the House and Senate during the process. So an absolutely different situation. So I think respectfully, I agree. If we don't get corporations or minerals in this case to take this topic up, then certainly that'd be something to talk about. But right now, it looks like everyone's trying to, I understand the passion, but I think holding off and waiting a little bit, I would be in favor of that instead of trying to just everybody on board, everybody trying to do the same thing simultaneously. So I'd be in favor of waiting until we find out what minerals does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kolb. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to suggest we do this, that you withdraw your motion for a bill and that you let me speak with the Minerals Chairman, and we'll talk through what's going on, who should address it, and that way we can get it out to the public so everyone knows what's going on. But I don't want to duplicate efforts. However, if they have a plate full, we have left room in our interim topics for other things that might arise. So if that is acceptable to you, that's what I would commit to doing. And if they're not working on it, I would be glad to put it on next meeting agenda.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. There was a lot of hands. Representative Conrad.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would, for the record, gladly accept the action item that Senator Senator Hicks has laid out, and I'll be speaking with Chairman Burkhart this evening.
Thank you. Next, Representative Allemand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I withdraw the amendment or the bill draft, the motion.
Thank you. I think that's a good compromise. The issue needs to be addressed, and thank you for bringing it up. And it sounds like we will address it. Our chairman will look into it, and doesn't get a satisfactory answer, it will be on the agenda in Buffalo, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any other actions from the committee? John? Representative Winter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to present a letter that I wrote back in during session and get the approval of the Ag Committee to endorse it and send it on to the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees. And I have copies of that letter here for everybody. So if you see fit, I would pass that out and we could discuss it.
Yeah, please pass it out. Oh, yeah. There's going to be a copy sent out, but I would ask Representative Winter to read it for us. Everybody will have a copy and they can follow along or whatever, but be good if he representative read it. Did you? I just asked you to read it out loud. Okay, well, and then we can follow along. Thank you. So everybody's got a copy of it. Representative Winters will read it to us and then we'll proceed from there. Thank you, Representative.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me give a little introduction here. As I indicated, I wrote this thing back during session and I wanted to get the Ag Committee involved in it, but things were very busy back at that time and it never did happen. So that's why I brought it here and so I'll read this thing and then I would appreciate any, first of all, do you want to participate? And second of all, if you have any changes or additions or whatever, I'd certainly be open to that. So anyway, this letter is addressed to the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees in Laramie. And it goes on, dear trustees, it has come to our attention recently of the efforts by the University of Wyoming administration to again change the direction and purpose of the College of Agriculture. First of all, why was Dean Rasco relieved of her leadership role in the Ag College? No explanation of substance for this action has been given, and we understand that an effort is being made to recruit new leadership completely alien to Wyoming values and ideals. Our fear is that the woke attitude exuded by our university leadership will seek to replace our College of Agriculture leadership positions from outside our state, where Wyoming values have little to no relevance for this selection criteria. Also, it is our understanding that the University of Wyoming is now funding a doctor in Casper who specializes in gender transformation surgeries. We are calling on you as trustees of our great university to respond to these concerns and do what is necessary to correct any activities which are foreign to Wyoming values. Citizens of Wyoming deserve the best our university can provide. Why would any Wyoming parents allow their children to attend an institution of higher learning that is advocating for this woke agenda? The motto, in quotes, "We need more cowboys," should be a drawing point to attract strong, honest, hardworking students from all over this country. wanting to learn and be in the agriculture business instead of the university being known for boys and girls in dorms and gender identity issues. We need leadership with deep ties to agriculture and at least some consideration of Wyoming candidates. It is quite obvious that the administrative activities as well as funding for the university is in question. An outside audit should be strongly considered in order to verify or refute post in-house audits. Concerns are as such that this effort should be taken sooner than later.
Thank you, Representative, for reading that to us. That was helpful, even though we had a copy. Committee, are there comments? Yes, Representative Conrad.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Representative Winters, my question is, what is the scope of the audit and who would you suggest, or what is the, I guess, basis for such?
Representative.
Thank you, Representative. I don't have any specifics on that. I'm open to suggestion. It's just that as the current acting dean of the Ag College said yesterday, I believe it was, they were having had an internal audit on some issue. And I just do not believe that anybody, whether it's at the university or in the general public, knows what the university has as far as funding. And we just keep pumping money into the university with no idea of where it's going or what they're doing with it. So I think it's appropriate that we as an Ag Committee request that we do have an outside and independent audit.
Thank you. A follow-up or not? Chairman Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up. So on the audit, are we talking about an audit of the College of Agriculture or an audit of the entire university?
Yes, thank you, Representative Craigo. In my estimation, at this point, a complete audit of the university funding should be attempted.
Thank you. Committee, Senator Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we know they don't have another outside audit? I mean, I don't know this. They were talking about an internal audit, but I can't believe anybody would allow an institute to audit themselves. I think it'd have to be an outside entity. I would certainly like more information, because if obviously what you're thinking is true, then yeah, we need to probably request an outside audit. But I would be uncomfortable at this point to move forward with a request where I don't know the answer. And I think we need to get to the bottom of that answer, to say the least. And on top of that, I think on a letter like this, I think it's a good beginning point, starting point for a lot of people's positions. But I'd like it to be, once we get some answers, to have our chairman, our co-chairs sign off on it once they approve of the letter. I think there's a lot of things we feel deeply about, passionate things that I think we feel are deeply wrong, but I'm really uncomfortable about talking about an audit that's just a nebulous term that I can't identify what they're even currently doing. I know they said they're doing an internal audit, but that doesn't exclude the possibility that they would have an external audit, because I don't know how they could comply with any financial reporting when they do their own audit. I don't understand that. So I'd certainly like to know more about this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative, are you considering an outside audit? That's the main question, I guess, from Senator Cole.
Mr. Chairman, that's the reason I wanted to bring this letter to you, to get your input, and there's some of these things I don't know about either. And so I thought I could get some information from you folks and at least present the problem, and maybe we can get some answers. So I'll do whatever I can to find this out.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Winter, for your work on this. I was wondering, would you be amenable to looking at maybe narrowing the scope of the draft and talking more about returning to our land grant mission and getting them back on track and trying to eat this elephant more one bite at a time rather than dealing with quite so many topics. Then we could find out about the audit component. That is something I know that a lot of us have been concerned about, is how they're spending their money, where it's going, and having a little more accountability from the legislature. But I'm wondering if this committee, the Ag Committee, needs to more focus on the land grant mission of agriculture and engineering, those types of things, and the Morrill Act, and kind of get it into smaller confines, because we've dealt with a lot of issues here. I agree the woke agenda is a real problem, but maybe we could start honing it in, and then as we move forward, deal with more of the audit functions. Put a request in, as far as the land grant mission and the direction we want to see it go.
Thank you, Senator. Are there other comments from the committee on this letter? Senator Iden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the comments from Senator Steinmetz, I would have to agree with to narrow it down. But I do think, focusing on the mission of the land grant college, and from some of the conversations we've heard on our tour and in other areas, it would be nice to know at minimum, not a full audit, but I know the Ag College, I think, feels a little bit slighted down there as far as facility dollars. You get College of Business and Law and Engineering. Their facilities are, sort of the Taj Mahal, and the Ag College is sort of at the bottom of the barrel as far as funding for improvements there. So I just wanted to make that comment there to see if we could find out how they appropriate, facility dollars for the, the Ag College. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hyde. Any further comment from the committee? Oh, Senator Steinmetz.
Well, and I think that last time the dean gave us some of that information, but maybe we need to reach out to more the financial side of things rather than because we have an interim dean now. But I would be glad to investigate that and see what we might come up with if we want to have them at one of our meetings to come and talk to us about that.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. It sounds like, are there further questions? Okay, Representative Winters, it sounds like it's a good letter, but it sounds like much of the committee wants you to narrow the focus possibly and focus on the Ag College. I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe you could work with Chairman Crago and Chairman Steinmetz and refine the letter and refine the scope of it for our next meeting in September in Buffalo. Possibly refine that. The committee good with that? Okay, sounds like they're good with that. Are you good with that, Representative?
Yes, certainly. That's why I come to you to get some input, because I realize that it is quite a broad perspective, but at the same time, there's been a lot of nonsense going on down there, and I just wanted to bring it out. So, but if you feel more comfortable with just narrowing it up, why, that's fine with me.
Representative, I think everybody on the committee realizes there's some nonsense down there and stuff we do not care for. So I appreciate you trying to focus on this. I think we can hopefully in September come up with something that's everybody can agree to and you're good with. Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Winter, I commend you for bringing this out into the open because it needs to be. And your comments in here are well taken, no question. Everybody you talk to we're going down a path that is going away from traditional values of the residents, the citizens of this state. So Thank you for bringing this to light and getting this drafted and getting input. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Is the two chairmen good with individuals on the committee before the September meeting, giving you their input?
Fine.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Hicks?
exactly what are the two chairmen's responsibilities and duties for the September meeting? I mean, there's,
Well,
is it specific College of Agriculture? Is it financing? Is it the funding? I think it'd be nice to provide a little more direction from the committee to the chairman unless they understand the directive, because I did not.
Thank you for that, Senator Hicks. We will try to further explain that. Chairman Craigo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the way I understood it, we were gonna narrow the focus to just some requests to the regarding the College of Ag to the trustees. I was also just gonna chime in and say some of these other questions, I might reach out to the university myself and see if we can't get the answers to some of these questions that are in the letter, and maybe we can get a response back to them prior to September as well, and just we can maybe kill two birds with one stone that way, and then not have to write a letter on some of these other issues. So I'll see what I can do in that regard, and we can work on a letter regarding the College of Ag. That's how I understand it, and I'll ask the co-chairman to confirm.
So one other point of clarification for me, if I would, Mr. Chairman. So are we talking to directly, because this letter speaks to the trustees and then it talks about University of Wyoming administration, which are two different entities. And so at the September meeting, are we looking at trying to get the administration, the president, the provost, the dean, and those, or are we looking at trying to get the trustees, or a mix of both to come with the committee and explain some of the issues that may be raised? So trustees or administration or both?
Good comment, Senator Hicks. I will ask Chairman Steinmetz to further help us out on this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Acting Chairman. I understood the same thing my co-chairman did, that we were narrowing the scope and needed to reach out to the university. I guess I would ask Representative Winter, did you want to speak to the trustees, the administration, or both?
I guess,
Because the letter was addressed to the trustees.
yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. To me, it's kind of one and the same. The trustees are the ones that hired the president, and it's my understanding they're responsible for a lot of the goings on down there. And so that's why I addressed it to the Board of Trustees. But if you think that it would be better just to direct it to the administration, that would be fine as well. So I could do, either both or either one of them.
Without objection from the committee, the chairman will work with Representative Winter to narrow the scope of his letter and to decide who would best fit his concerns to possibly appear at the next meeting, or how we might tackle this. Without objection, that is how the committee will proceed. Is that all right with you, Representative?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Senator Hicks, does that kind of narrow it down for you?
Absolutely. Just
Okay.
my recommendation is, as you may ask, you probably get more answers if you ask both. Try to get one of the trustees here or the president of the board plus the administration. It's just been my experience in the past. That's just a recommendation to the chairman. If that's feasible, that's what I would recommend, that we try to get at least one
Okay,
of the.
I think that's noted by the chair and the co-chairs. Further comments on Representative Winter letter in this discussion? Any more discussion on it? Seeing none, Representative Winters, thank you very much. All right. Are there any other committee actions? Nothing to the left, nothing to the right. So,
I want.
excuse me, Senator Steinmetz.
All right, well, I'm going to close this out. Thank you, Senator French. Go ahead, before we get going, but anything from staff, Anna?
Madam Chairman, you might want to have public comment because we did talk about a few more things, just to cover that base.
All right. Is there any public comment in the room? Any public comments? Seeing none, and there's no one online, correct? All right. So with that, I just want to wish everyone a good summer and a good campaign season. And we'll see you back in September in Buffalo. Co-Chairman Crago will be getting us instructions, and thank you for hosting us and putting on a little tour for us. We really appreciate that. Do you have any closing comments?
I do not, except thanks for having us in Rock Springs. Thanks to the college and thanks to our staff for all of their hard work and for all the people that showed up and testified.
Yes, we appreciate all of you. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.